welcome to Fascinating Frontiers, episode 125, for July 8th, 2026. The universe has been busy. Let's get into it. A total solar eclipse will turn day to night across northern Spain next month as the moon fully covers the sun. The moon will completely cover the sun on August 12th, briefly turning day into night along a path through northern Spain. Observers in the zone will see the solar corona and planets that are normally hidden by daylight. The event is the first total solar eclipse visible from mainland Spain in decades. Local interest has surged, with rural residents who once watched the night sky alone now part of widespread public excitement. Towns along the path of totality report packed accommodations and organized viewing events. Enrique Bordalo, who grew up stargazing in the Spanish countryside, now sees his childhood passion shared by thousands preparing for next month's eclipse. Now, shifting focus outward, New Horizons has emerged from its record hibernation. NASA's New Horizons spacecraft has completed its longest hibernation period of nearly a year and is now transmitting data collected in the distant Kuiper Belt. The spacecraft remains in good health after waking and is ready to resume science operations far beyond Pluto. Mission teams will begin processing the new observations in the coming days. This marks another step in the extended mission studying the outer solar system's small bodies. Future data releases will focus on objects encountered during the hibernation window. New Horizons has returned from nearly a year of hibernation with fresh Kuiper Belt data now streaming back to Earth. The spacecraft's instruments recorded conditions in a region where sunlight is thousands of times weaker than at Earth. Mission teams are already checking instrument health before full science operations resume. The data will add to the sparse record of objects beyond Pluto. What distant body will the next downlink reveal? On a different note, the U.S. Space Force has added two newer firms to its launch program. The U.S. Space Force has included Relativity Space and Impulse Space in the National Security Space Launch Phase 3 Lane 1 program. The move opens military launch opportunities to newer companies beyond traditional providers. Both firms will now compete for future national security payloads. The decision reflects an effort to broaden the industrial base for assured access to space. Next steps include contract negotiations and mission assignments. Indian startup Skyroot Aerospace aims to conduct its first orbital launch attempt as soon as July 12th. The company plans to scale quickly toward monthly launches once initial success is achieved. The vehicle will carry a small satellite payload on this debut flight. Ground teams are completing final checks ahead of the window. Success would mark India's first private orbital launch. Italian firm D-Orbit has signed a contract to provide multiple launches for Japanese startup ArcAge Space using its ION satellite carrier. The agreement covers a series of missions beginning later this year. ArcAge plans to deploy small satellites for communications and technology demonstrations. D-Orbit's carrier will handle deployment and initial orbit adjustments. The deal expands European launch services for Asian customers. LHA-120N40 appears as a glowing shell of debris from a star that exploded in the Large Magellanic Cloud, 163,000 light-years away in Dorado. The blue outer shell marks material expelled by the supernova, while reddish patches show ongoing emission from smaller regions. The image was captured from Rio Hurtado, Chile. Such remnants help astronomers study how heavy elements are distributed into surrounding galaxies. Additional multi-wavelength observations could reveal more about the progenitor star. The bright galaxy Centaurus A, 11 million light-years away, continues forming stars rapidly despite an ancient collision that is not immediately obvious in visible light. The galaxy ranks as the fifth brightest in the sky and has been observed extensively by both professionals and amateurs. Its warped disk and active nucleus hint at the merger that occurred billions of years ago. Radio and infrared data reveal structures left by the event. Further studies will examine how the collision continues to influence star formation. If the Milky Way sat at the center of one of these forming clusters, the nearest neighboring subcluster would lie more than 1 million light-years away, roughly 10 times the distance to Andromeda. Two massive elliptical galaxies anchor each subcluster like gravitational anchors, pulling smaller galaxies into orbit while the whole system hurtles through space. When the subclusters slam together, their galaxies pass through one another with relatively few direct collisions because the spaces between stars are so vast. Instead, the dark matter halos and hot gas interact, slowing the motion and allowing eventual merger. The entire process can repeat several times before the final cluster settles. We still do not know exactly how much of the final cluster's mass ends up locked in the central giant ellipticals versus remaining in the diffuse intracluster light. Astronomers used observations of cosmic explosions to suggest the Milky Way's true size exceeds previous measurements. The technique relies on light from distant events passing through galactic material. Revised dimensions would affect models of the galaxy's mass and rotation. The finding challenges assumptions built from earlier surveys. Additional data from upcoming telescopes will test the new estimate. NASA's Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, scheduled for launch in August 2026, is projected to discover around 100,000 exoplanets during its mission. That total would surpass the combined yield of every previous telescope. The observatory will use wide-field imaging and microlensing to detect planets across a broad range of distances. Mission planners anticipate the largest statistical sample of exoplanets yet assembled. Early data releases after launch will begin validating the prediction. APOLINK has successfully contacted its initial satellite after a July 7th launch on a SpaceX rideshare mission. The contact clears the path for a data relay demonstration under an experimental Federal Communications Commission license. Engineers will now test the satellite's relay capabilities in orbit. The mission aims to prove low-latency data forwarding between spacecraft. Follow-on tests are planned once the demonstration phase begins. The 9th magnitude main belt asteroid will be visible all night on July 8th in southeastern Aquila, near the border with Scutum. Opposition places it opposite the Sun in Earth's sky, maximizing its brightness for the year. Observers can track its motion against background stars throughout the night. The asteroid is roughly 150 kilometers across and has been studied for decades. Amateur astronomers are encouraged to attempt imaging or visual observations while it remains well placed. Recent Ferris State University graduate Francisco Vasquez has started a role at Blue Origin focused on space exploration hardware. The position places him in the company's engineering teams working on crewed vehicles. Vasquez's academic background prepared him for systems integration and testing tasks. His hiring reflects growing pathways from university programs into commercial spaceflight. Future updates may highlight project assignments tied to upcoming launches. The Cottonwood Fire burned more than 150 square miles and affected parts of a Utah ski resort. Satellite imagery captured the fire's extent and burn scar for damage assessment. Firefighters used the data alongside ground reports to monitor spread. The event highlights how Earth-observing satellites support wildfire response. Additional images will track vegetation recovery in the affected area. NASA's Plankton Aerosol Cloud Ocean Ecosystem satellite is undergoing validation of its science data products through coordinated field campaigns. Teams compare satellite measurements with ship and buoy observations to refine ocean color and atmospheric retrievals. The effort supports studies of marine ecosystems and climate interactions. Early results show good agreement between space and surface data. Further campaigns will expand geographic coverage. Next time, keep an eye on the first downlink from New Horizons as mission teams begin full processing of the Keewape observations. That covers today's space and science news. Share this with a fellow space enthusiast if you found it interesting. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nera Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the Nera Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Unintended Consequences, True Stories of Good Intentions That Backfired. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.